What a surprise! Florida man does it again. We're going to be talking about the ultimate Florida man in Ron DeSantis. And Florida man does what Florida man does best. So, our native Florida woman to talk about our favorite Florida man, Ron DeSantis. Take it away, Helen.
Well, here we go again. Is the ridiculousness happening in Florida? You betcha. Governor Ron DeSantis gave his John Hancock on a bill which allows chaplains in our public schools here in Florida. Will they be preaching? Probably. With Florida's governor overriding precedent and changing the Florida Constitution on a whim, he's inviting a lawsuit as he actively expressed the Satanic Temple cannot have their chaplains in Florida schools. DeSantis faces criticism for stating that Satanists cannot participate in the program, with legal experts pointing out the non-theistic groups are protected under the Constitution. This brings concerns from religious and secular groups alike on the influence of religion in public schools, along with discriminatory rhetoric that some religious groups can participate while others will be banned. Could this be a publicity stunt to invite controversy and draw attention away from the real concerns that are happening in the state of Florida? You betcha again. The story is from The Friendly Atheist by our friend Helen on April 19th, 2024. Okay, y'all. I live here.
You're also a Satanist, aren't you? You're not the only Satanist around these parts.
I am a member of the Satanic Temple.
I'm not a member of the TST, but I know you are, and I think you are. Would that be correct? British friend?
Yes, so, I'm one of your very few British representatives in the Satanic
Temple. The TST. You're the whole
tell us. So before we dive headlong into this, why don't the two of you give us the elevator pitch on the Satanic Temple? Whoever wants to go first, go, but give us the elevator pitch.
So why do you want to be part of the Satanic Temple? Well, let me tell you, viewer, why you want to be part of the Satanic Temple. If you are an atheist and you care about the separation of church and state, but also you want to make your religious friends uncomfortable, become a member of the TSD, wear cool masks, wear black, have rituals out in front of public spaces that make people question your sanity. But you will be proving to them that their separation of church and state, where they want religious right, they only want religious rights for themselves. They don't want it for anybody else. So you want to poke at hypocrisy while also doing some mini horror stuff, maybe make some Christian uncomfortable and tell you that you're a demon. Please consider joining the Church of the Satanic Temple. Hail Satan, hail thyself. And that is my pitch. Emma.
Plus, you get rituals to help. I mean, this is the perfect article because this type of statement is exactly why TST exists. And we discussed abortion as well, and you get your religious right to abortion via the Satanic Temple. And yeah, help fund separation of church and state by proving that exact point. That,
so, yeah, it sounds fabulous.
If they get it, we get it, is basically the motto, but we get to do it wearing demon horns and, yes, frightening people a little bit, which is fun.
You want the aesthetic.
All I will say is
they
are cool demon horns. They are cool demon horns.
Yeah, it's all the aesthetic.
So, what is it about the Satanic Temple that has drawn the ire of Florida man, that has, wound up him so much? What exactly is it about the Satanic Temple that winds up the current governor of Florida?
I know. Let me answer. I know, because I am my fucking governor. So the reason why he's doing this is one that, okay, I want to remind our audience that DeSantis went to Yale Law School. He might be a chump, and but he knows the law. And what happened is that if you look at Iowa, and we talked about this story before, what happened during the holidays, DeSantis is like, oh, this caused a bit of a stir, and he is following the same course, because he knows that that he is stirring controversy. He did the same thing with Disney. Keep in mind that this man knows what he's doing. I know that he seems like he's a dum-dum, but he's not. Because he is using the legal precedent and his ability to whip his base into a frenzy to bring forth certain things that he wants to happen in the state. And he is inviting that lawsuit to distract from actual real problems that we have going on in Florida, because he knows that the religious right and are going to follow their emotions, not follow what is actually happening to us on a state level with the cutting of Medicare, Medicaid, lack of access to education, the privatization of schools, wanting to take public funding away from public education to charter schools. There's a lot of stuff happening. But what do you do? What do you do when you want to cause distraction from that? You start calling on Satan, and he knows that he's inviting a lawsuit to happen. And then the people that are part of his base, instead of focusing on the real problems that are going on in Florida, are going to start focusing on the Satanic Temple, and that like, oh no, there'll be Satanists in schools. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I've got to disagree with you. Because time and again, we see this guy bite off more than he can chew. I mean, he did the big fight with the mouse. He thought Disney was going to take all that over, and he completely screwed the pooch all the way around. He lost time and time again. He got wrapped up with that Moms Against Liberty, who the head of the Florida GOP ended up having a threesome, and he ended up getting tried for rape.
Fun.
Yeah,
He was fun. Oh,
another part, she's in my town.
and the thing is, though, is that I think that really he's just bringing himself some more bad publicity, because at the end of the day, I agree, he's not an idiot. He's not a dummy. But he does his best to play one on TV, because time and again, he makes choices that come back to bite him on the ass. They aren't successful. He's still trying to fight this culture war, and he's going to lose because his own people are tired of it. Especially, I believe, Helen, you mentioned previously, perhaps, that there's going to be a on the ballot in Florida about abortion. There's different things that are going to be on the ballot pushing back against him, because I think that the truth is that Florida is starting to have enough of Rick DeSantis. He's been
Ronnie.
Look, it's like this. Some things are not important to get right. And if there's anybody's name who it's not important to get right, it's Rick. He may be Ron to you, but you hated him as long as I have. No,
Rhonda McDonald. Is it Rhonda McDonald running it now?
You know what? Let's go with it, because at the end of the day, he's a joke, and I think I don't think he knows where to go from here. I think he's ridden it so far to this point, he's just riding it to the end, because there's only two ways that you ever get that taste of wanting to be president out of your mouth. And one is to become president, and the other one is to die. Well, I think we settled him not becoming president, so he's only got one option. So he's just chewing on what tastes good to him now.
I mean, I'm a recent person who has recently moved to America at the time of recording of this. I have moved to a fairly sane part of America. And I look back at where I have come from, and I go, we got rid of one clown, and that was a real trip. How is it that Florida has got its own clown doing these clown-like things that just made me go, your day has been and gone in the world of professional politics? It's just odd to see this happening. And I mean, Emma will remember the Partygate scandal, I'm sure, and how great that was to live through. But I now live in America, and I see these things being said, and I just go, huh? What? You what?
I did wonder when I read it, because I believe he said something like, now, I know lots of you folks have been worrying about the Satanists and asking me that if the Satanists are gonna... And I kind of read that and I thought, have they...
Really?
You read about, oh, there's going to be chaplains in schools, and somebody's like, the Satanists are coming! Like, I don't know if I believe that.
Saddle up Beelzebub, he's on his way.
Like, who are the Satanist chaplains? I know one.
If I was nearby, I'd try and sort something out, but it's a bit far to travel.
I mean, what is it, Christians? Get dressed. Satanists are coming to a school near you. It's like, really?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like something any Satanist would have even done without it being, mentioned.
I mean...
So... No, go ahead, Phoebe.
I mean, it's just one of these things where I look at America and I look at Britain and I compare them as they have elements, because Florida is like, what Britain is to Europe. We all look at it and go, right, you do that.
What are they doing now?
The only difference is that, Britain can't really undo what it does quite as easily, whereas Florida can undo it. It's still part of the 50 states, whereas, the other 27 in the European Union went, nah. And I mean, we're seeing rubbish like this being pushed in Britain. This is not just an American thing where we're pushing chaplains into schools here. We're allowing academies and free schools, which are run by religious organizations, to be funded by the taxpayer in Britain, which allow religious ethos into the schools with very little oversight. And I think that that's the most dangerous thing here. And I've been on previous episodes with Infidel, where Infidel has spoken very eloquently about this. And it's just been, where does this stop? So where does this stop? So Infidel, Helen, and Emma, where is the end point of this without just saying it's going to be Christo-fascism? Where is the next step logically for this to go?
Well, you have to understand that there is one group of people, starting with our Speaker of the House, who has supported in the past actually having a constitutional convention. And that's where I think that there's a group of people like him who would love to see things go. I think they would like to literally do away with our Constitution as we have it now. I don't think there's support for that yet, but that is their end goal. And in the meantime, though, and I believe this is something that you brought up one time previously, Phoebe, is that we modify the rules slowly to where eventually we get to something that is based upon things that were never even part of the original rule.
You shift the Overton window, you add the judicial gloss, and eventually somebody takes it all away and goes, it actually says this, and everyone goes, no, it doesn't, and then someone points out and everyone has a hissy fit.
Yes, and that's what I think we're heading to, because they want social workers out of school, because all those woke social workers who are trying to teach people to be themselves and think for themselves, as opposed to follow the guidelines and fit within the criteria of life that we expect you to, allowing chaplains to go in there and essentially shill for their Jesus is something that that's not a bug, that's a feature to them. And until we recognize that and treat it as such, we're going to continue to face this.
And that's really scary. To hear that said, that's actually really scary, because it gives off the impression that the reasonableness that America was founded on may as well just be thrown in the bin. America was founded on reasonableness, checks and balances, equality before the law, unless you were of a certain indentured servitude nature, then you were worth 3/5 of the law, and so on and so on. But the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments have kind of sorted that out. The 22nd, 23rd Amendments, they tried to deal with that as well. But we're still dealing with the legacy of those elements. But the founding principle of it was we don't want the tyranny of George III running us anymore.
Right.
But now we seem to be just replacing that tyranny with another kind of tyranny, and that's what I say this book tells me to say. Do you think that's actually accurate, Emma?
I don't know. It's sort of hard to say. I think it's the thing is, it's interesting. I'm going to basically bypass that and leave that on the floor for an American to pick up in a second. And I'm just going to give you my train of thought that was the squirrel in my brain was running away with. It's interesting because you compared the UK and the US and the sort of where it's going question, because this was a big thing. We had a discussion on some show. It might have been this show even. I don't remember, about the census that you love, and how we're now technically Christianity is a minority religion, or something. We're a minority Christian. We now have more non-religious people on the census in the UK than ever before, and we're England and Wales specifically are like some of the most, like the least religious, or have the most non-religious people in the world. If that's not a baffling way of putting that, you know what I meant.
People who do not identify as having a specific religion, you will find most of them in England and Wales as a proportion of the population.
Indeed, thank you. That was much better put than what I said. But my sort of concern is, how does that, that's the feeling and the opinion of the actual public. How does that translate to what government is doing and what religious organizations are doing? Because it does feel like we're getting more and more, maybe it's just my biased reading, but it does feel like we're getting more and more sort of Christian related news and outcries and religious related sort of stories in the mainstream media. And is that just because we're taking our cues from the US? Is that actually going anywhere? Are we indeed getting less Christian? Of course, the gap is sort of filled in here by then the Christians going, but the Muslims. So I don't know. In terms of where the future of the US lies, turn to an American. Because
Helen, pick up what Emma threw on the floor. Go on.
So
please.
I am deeply concerned, just because history has set a precedent when certain groups of people get a little bit of power, and it is the slow boil, because it is, and keep in mind that this has been slowly coming to fruition since the 1950s. We are now seeing the manifestation of that long patience, that long chipping away at individual liberties, chipping away from the secular being separate from the religious. And it's been slow, and it's this is not true, but it's the frog in water, though the metaphor is not true, but I'm going to use it anyway because fuck it, everybody talks about it. Like the slow boil, and you just kind of get used to it. Like up to a few years ago, I wasn't really paying attention to this shit, but 2016 happened and I got involved in politics. Here we are. Because once I saw what was happening, I was like, oh no. And keep in mind, I am an atheist. But I also want other people, even though I think religion is silly and needs to go by the wayside, I still don't want to take other people's ability for them to practice their religion. And what's going to happen is that it's not going to just happen to us. It's going to happen to other faiths in this country. It just doesn't affect us as secularists who are yelling from the rafters going, oh my God, please stop this. And that's what's so scary, because one thing about being an American, I believe in freedom. I sincerely believe in it. I believe in freedom.
Freedom.
And I don't believe in the freedom for me, not for thee. I believe in the freedom for all of us. And what's happening is that an example with DeSantis, he's basically saying, I get to choose what is a religion and not. I get to choose who gets to play the game and who doesn't. And when you get someone like this in power, they will move to the way of fascism.
And if you believe in freedom, express your freedom of expression down below.